Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World with me, Jon Jordan. So we're looking at the Blankos marketplace. So Blankos Block Party game on open beta at the moment on PC. It's been around in various forms for the last kind of 6 months or so. This is the marketplace. It's been live for a couple of months, but the big thing that happened this week was all Blankos accounts got access to the marketplace, at least in terms of buying these Blanko NFTs. So it's still the case that most accounts in most geographies can't sell these NFTs. So at the moment, if you're based in the US, the UK, Canada, and Germany, you can sell these NFTs, but no one else can. That will roll out over the next kind of month or so. But at the moment, every account. If you create a Blankos account, you can now go into the marketplace and start buying. So obviously the point of the marketplace is this is where players can sell the Blankos that they've bought over the last few months. There's also a shop where you can buy the current kind of set of Blankos that are live. But what basically happens is Blankos are released and there's either like a fixed supply, maybe say 2,000, 3,000, or they are available for a fixed period of time, and as many as are sold in that period of time will be available. But the vast majority of Blankos, there's about 50 now, 50 different of these characters. The vast majority of these obviously are not available in the shop, so these are just now available through people who have bought them however many months ago, now selling them. So we can kind of start to get some interesting information sort of about sort of what's going on. So it's still very early. And as I say, still a lot of people can't sell. So we've sort of gone through this situation this week where people can buy. So obviously buying, as we know from basic economics, raises the price of things. We haven't seen the situation now when people can sell. When people are selling, we assume the price that will be sort of potentially deflationary. The price of some things will drop. There's another big issue going on at the moment. You can't really use crypto, so at the moment all the buying and selling is on credit cards, but over the next kind of 2 months the kind of crypto is going to be integrated, so people can buy and sell using crypto. I think particularly Ethereum cryptocurrency, and that will obviously then potentially bring in a lot of people who have a lot of ETH outside the Blankos ecosystem. Blankos runs on the EOS blockchain, although it's a private blockchain, so it doesn't really matter that it's running on EOS. But as soon as we have that opened up, we'll have at that point a full economy that everyone in the game can buy and sell, and people can buy and sell with fiat currencies, with their credit cards, or come and buy and sell with their crypto. So anyway, a long introduction. I'm just sort of pointing out that this is not the finished article. So there's some interesting data, I think, which I'm going to go into, but clearly not investment advice, and clearly these things can change because we're not at the kind of end state. So we're sort of restricted, at least in terms of selling at the moment. But anyway, I thought it was interesting to go through this sort of stuff. So currently I'm organising this on the from the most expensive to the starting with the most expensive. So some of these, there's only the sort of key thing with these Blankos is often around how many have been minted. So there's only 10 of these Billy Six Bones. So very low liquidity. Someone's put one in for $6 million. None of these have ever sold, so we don't know what the price of those is. Terry, 122, $12,000. Austin Rex, 666. Some of these sold. One of these sold, I think, for $2,500 the other week. So some of these very expensive ones, we can see we got the kind of ones over 1,000. But one of the nice things about Blankos, at least at the moment, is we have these ones, much more affordable. So we have some at least under $30, some under $40. So we have to go a little way down to. There's still quite a lot under $50. So, but this pricing has changed quite a lot over the last week as we've had people coming in to buy. So that's what I'm going to look at in this video. But I thought I would just show the marketplace just so you get an idea about what's going on. Okay, so let's look at some graphs. So basically, for the last couple of months, I've been just manually writing down the floor price of all of these different Blankos. So the floor price just means the lowest price that's available. So there's various different pricing. For most of these Blankos, there's like 10, 20 available in the marketplace. They're priced differently depending on what people put the prices as. Generally, the price is dependent on the serial number. So the serial numbers obviously go from 1 to whatever the maximum supply is, and obviously the number 1 will be seen as the most rare because it's the first one. And as your serial number gets higher, they'll be sort of less valuable. So we've seen some this week that have been selling for thousands of dollars because they were number 1, whereas the same it's the same Blanko but with a serial number of like 2067 might sell for $50. So there's always this sort of premium that is in some ways based around the lowness of the serial number. But anyway, all these graphs are based on the floor price, so the cheapest one available. Obviously, there's a lot of analysis you could do around the most expensive one, the most expensive price that's available at any point as well, but that's more complicated, so I'm not doing that. So anyway, look at the first graph here. This is over the last week, so all these graphs are over the last 7 days. So this is the change in price of sub $1,000 Blankos. So as we just saw there's a whole bunch of Blankos that are kind of really limited in terms of mint quality, and people have put silly values on them, and there's not a lot of liquidity there. People aren't buying and selling those, so I've ignored those because people aren't just buying and selling the ones that are over $1,000 because there's just not many of them around. So this is for all the Blankos under $1,000. What's happened to the price in the last 7 days? And obviously it's a bit difficult to see. There's all these different Blankos, and the price sort of we can't really. It looks a bit of a mess. Obviously, what we generally see is most of them, the price has gone up since any account can start buying, because if you can't sell but you can buy, the price is going to go up. I mean, that's sort of the only thing that can happen. Well, the price could stay the same, really, I suppose. But generally, this is not a great surprise. We can kind of see, there is sort of a grouping. So there's Blankos that are sort of under $50, and there are Blankos that are sort of a few $100s to $500. So that's sort of how it breaks down, and that's really to do with the how many of these are minted. This is a log scale, so just so that I use a log scale to make it clear because there's quite a wide variation in pricing here. Okay, so let's have a look at a lot of these graphs are sort of repositioning the same data in different ways, because data can always be looked at in different ways. So the previous one here, each one of these lines is the price, is the floor price of an individual Blanko set over the last week. Here, what I've done is I've basically, of all these sub $1,000 Blankos, I've basically said if you're going to buy all of them, how much would the price be? So before the marketplace was opened up for everyone to buy, the price of buying all the Blankos under $1,000 would have cost you $4,000. And obviously we can see that's sort of stayed the same, and then we can see obviously this point here, we've gone from $4,000 to $5,000. This is the day where everyone can start buying, so the price has continued merrily upwards since then. So now if you wanted to buy all those Blankos that were under $1,000 on the 1st of August, now it would cost you over $7,500. So we can see the price has almost doubled in a week. Now that's not been spread equally across all the Blankos. So here we look at the price, the percentage change in the floor price of all the Blankos. So each one of these lines is how an individual Blanko has changed its price. So amazingly, because there's a lot of Blankos, as you can see, 2 of them have actually gone down in price over the week, which seems sort of odd, but who knows? That's what's happened. Not gone down very much, like 15% or something like that. But we can see here, Menace is the Blanko that has done best over the week. So the price of a Menace, of the cheapest Menace, has risen 400%. So actually, it was $25, the cheapest Menace at the start of the week, and now the cheapest Menace is $125. I think that's right, 400%. And we can see here, obviously, each one of these is a different Blankos. There's different. It looks different. It's different aesthetic. There's a different mint supply. Actually, Menace was pretty cheaply priced, considering there's only about 1,500 of those. So not a great surprise that the price of that one's gone up. One of the key things in general for the pricing of any NFT is how many are out there, and then the pricing within that kind of band is what's the serial number. But again, I'll say I'm looking at the cheapest one available. So Menace, 1,500 of those. Betty Yeti, again, not many of those, 1,700. Kasumi, only 400 of those. Sergeant Poppy, less than 400 of those. So the ones that have gone up a lot in price were probably a bit undervalued, and there's not very many of them around. Whereas something like some of these other ones, Space Girl at 5,000, 4,500 of those. Lolly I think is about similar, 3,500. So that's roughly what's going on. The average increase in price was 81% if you just average the whole thing, or if you take into account the value of each NFT, it's 88%. So, but broadly, the price of these NFTs has sort of doubled in the last 7 days. It's slightly under that, but that's sort of level. Okay, so let's also have a look here in terms of the price of the cheapest Blanko and the most expensive Blanko. So as we generally see with these situations, the pricing of the most expensive assets seems to increase more than the price of the least expensive ones, and I guess that sort of makes sense. The most expensive ones will be the most desirable could be an aesthetic reason. Could look really cool. Could be that they are the most limited supply. Generally, at the moment, it's more about supply than aesthetic. But we can see here, even in the case of the cheapest one. So this is not the price of any particular Blanko. This is just the price of the cheapest Blanko. On any day. So this is not one Blanko. This is the bottom line is actually there's two different Blankos that the price that happen to be the cheapest one any day. So cheapest, if you came in any day and the cheapest Blanko you could buy was $15, and by the end of the week the cheapest Blanko you could buy was $25. So not a massive increase in terms of absolute value, $10, but obviously that's sort of 80 is about 80%, isn't it? Something like that, maybe 75%. But we can see here the most expensive Blanko under $1,000. Just to put that caveat in because there's different dynamic going on there. So at the start of the week, the most expensive Blanko under $1,000 you could buy was $395, and at the end of the week, the most expensive Blanko you could buy that had been under $1,000 at the start of the week was now $1,175, if that makes sense. So we can see here again, this is a log scale. So the cheapest one has sort of not quite doubled, but we can see the most expensive one, if we assume that's $400, had almost trebled. So we can see here that sort of the price dynamic, the price velocity of the whole Blanko NFT system was more directed towards the more expensive ones, the rarer ones, than the cheapest ones, which sort of makes sense. And then the final thing I've sort of looked at is I've broken down the price change in terms of the seasons. So the seasons in Blankos are a bit like something like the seasons in the Battle Pass seasons in Fortnite. These NFTs were created at certain in certain periods of time, certain chronologies, and that has also impacted the price. So, excuse me, there are more than these 4 seasons of Blankos, but it starts to get. Some of them become a bit obscure, so I've just basically taken these 4, which are sort of the biggest or the most interesting seasons. So there is the Alpha season. This is what we call the Founder season. These were the first ones you could buy. There were only 4 NFTs in that season. There's the Early Access Blankos, which is the current season. That's still open. It's actually 14 Blankos that have been released in Early Access. That's where the game is. So these seasons are sort of based around where the game development is. There's Open Beta, which was sort of in between Alpha and Early Access. Actually 16 Blankos were released in Open Beta, and then there's Pre-Alpha, which was very early on. These Blankos are actually given away for free as competitions. There's only 4 of those, but we can see here what's going on. So this is the average price of a Blanko in these seasons. So we can see the cheapest ones are the Open Beta, and that's because most of those are being kind of sold for like $10-$20 in limited supply. We have Early Access, sort of similar, but there was a few more expensive ones. Generally, they're about $10 to $20, $30 maybe. There's been a few that have been more expensive, sort of $200. And we've got one next week actually coming. The first one that'll be $300. So there'll be a drop of a Blanko that will be $300. We have the alpha ones. They were priced differently from about 250. If I get it right. They were in packs actually, so they had other things with them, but they were $50 to $200, $250. And then the pre-alpha ones were given away for free, but this is the price on the marketplace. So these ones are sort of rare. It's not very clear how many of them are out there. Quite a lot were minted, so generally around 3,000 of these NFTs were minted, but we don't really know how many are ever going to appear in the game because they were sort of given away before the game was live, so it's a bit difficult. There's a lot of uncertainty around that, which is why they're valuable. So we can see here, they were the most expensive on average, and they've sort of risen from whatever $230, $240 to almost $300 on average. The alpha ones, risen a bit. The early access ones have actually sort of done the best. So here, whatever, it's like $80, but they've risen like to almost $150. The ones that are kind of are interesting. The open beta ones, there's quite a lot of them, 16 different NFTs here, and they're actually some of them are quite short supply, but people don't seem to care about these ones very much. So these ones have seen the least increase in pricing. That could be obviously over time. People have been more interested in the ones that are kind of currently been available and been buying those ones up more, or the ones that are really old, and these ones are sort of not new and not old, so people aren't very interested in them. So maybe this is sort of people will start delving into these and trying to find some bargains. I don't know. You can see the same thing here. If we look at this is the total price. So this is if you add up the price of all those individual NFTs in that season. It's as I say, the same data just in different ways. You can kind of see actually, again, early access has really seen quite a big price dynamic. I think that's partly because there's things like Professor Mewington, which is associated with Deadmau5. There's been some quite high-profile NFT releases there in quite short supply, quite small supply. So they've really seen a lot of price velocity. And in this case, if you look at all the total price, the alpha ones, the founder ones, have actually been actually quite static. So if you look back here, they sort of have gone up, but nothing like the same sort of level as the pre-alpha ones, which are these free ones, which have a lot of uncertainty around them, or the early access ones, which people are more, I think, familiar with. So there we go. Some graphs around Blankos. I mean, the whole kind of thing shouldn't be a surprise. As people get access to buy these NFTs, then the price generally of all of them goes up. It goes up at different levels depending on exactly what the NFT looks like, mainly because how many are out there. But again, this is very early days, so it's clearly not investment advice, and clearly I don't really have any massive conclusions from this other than the price of all these Blankos has gone up, and it's interesting to see. But I think there is, if you know about Blankos, you can sort of start to make some kind of come up with some ideas about why things are going up and why some are not going up as much as others. So it's the starting point, not the end point. But certainly, I will be keeping my spreadsheet sharp and seeing what's going on with these NFTs. Particularly, I think as the crypto stuff opens up, as at some point in the future, you'll be able to actually bridge these NFTs to Ethereum, which is obviously where the biggest blockchain and where most of the value in blockchain gaming and DeFi is. I think we'll see quite a big sort of change in the pricing, particularly at the top end. But we will wait and see. That's all conjecture at this point in time. Anyway, thanks for watching. It's Blockchain Gaming World, where we spend our time looking at blockchain games and spend actually quite a lot of time doing funny graphs about it all as well. So I hope you find it interesting. Please subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and see you again soon.